So obviously the biggest issues and challenges that we've had over the past couple of years has been the COVID pandemic and everything that's happened because of that. What we're seeing in the industry is that it has really impacted a lot of different things. So you could see shipping containers that weren't available anymore, and that is because there was no staff. So because everyone had to stay home in a lot of the locations around the world where the harbors were bringing in the ships, for instance, it meant that containers stayed on ships, which in turn meant that the household goods that were on those ships were not being offloaded from them. We've had people living in certain locations who weren't able to leave, or whose household goods moves were not being able to be picked up because, again, of the fact that the staff was not able to work. We've had people arriving in new locations where they weren't able to be assisted because they had to go into quarantine for 1, 2, in certain locations even 3 weeks at a time. And then they had to wait for someone to become available to them afterwards. Throughout that period, one of the things that's really most important is to ensure that we communicate with them, that we keep them up to date at all times of what is going on, because the uncertainty is one of the most difficult things.
It's very important to manage expectations. I think it's a key part of our job role to be able to assist someone who's moving to a country for the first time and for them to understand what happens from start to finish.
So one of the things that we've really assisted with throughout COVID was helping people leave their property whilst they weren't in that country anymore. So it's really been an interesting thing that we hadn't encountered before yet. You can imagine that in certain locations, people weren't allowed to come back again, or at least not during COVID for a particular period of time. They were maybe in their home country already, or in their own country and having a holiday there, but they couldn't go back to the country where they were on assignment. So what we had to do in some cases is we had to be extremely flexible in terms of picking up their household goods and helping them shut down the property that they were living in throughout their assignment without the person actually being present. Our people in those locations have really stepped up and have been FaceTiming, for instance, with the assignees while the crew was packing their belongings, and ensuring that they were aware of everything that was happening in their property so they could see it from a distance.
It's very important to be able to relate to your client, to be able to build a relationship with them. And the best way to do that is to show sensitivity and understanding, and be able to also create a common ground, because then they trust you and they're able to follow what you think would be best for them.
So another situation that we've worked really closely with our clients on has been the war in Ukraine. A lot of our clients had people based in Ukraine, and we've really wanted to help them, in most cases, get out of the country. In some cases, what that meant is that we had to ensure that there wasn't any conflict happening at that particular location at the day of packing, and that our crew were able to go into a property and pack up the goods of someone to be able to get it out. And I'm really proud to say we were able to do that in so many occasions over the past 6 months or so.
We've had a few clients that have been moving people outside of Ukraine when the original invasion or war in Ukraine started, and they wanted to move their employees out of Ukraine rather quickly for their own safety. And what happened was that when they were able to get to the border, then we were able to organise for them to move to their new host country, and from there we were able to assist with the immigration at the moment within Europe of Ukraine citizens being able to live within European countries for a certain period. So we're able to assist with getting them into those countries, and then from there we were able to assist with obtaining their tax numbers and all the correct tax information so they're able to stay there permanently for their new employment there.
All the people that have moved out of Ukraine or have left Ukraine have had to find housing in other countries. Now, we all know that, for instance, in Poland, a lot of people have gone there and temporary accommodation is really difficult to come by. But it's not just Poland anymore. What we've seen ourselves is that there was a mass influx of people out of Ukraine into Berlin, for instance. And that then has had a trickle effect, not just on the people that were looking for housing coming from Ukraine, but also other people there. So some of our other clients who have seen the temp accommodation cost go up, or even just a complete lack of temporary accommodation availability, as well as permanent housing.
There's a lot of inflation throughout the world at the moment, so a lot of the costs are changing. So the cost of electricity in some countries for people's permanent accommodation, or even temporary accommodation costs, because there's things that move with the market, and when there's costs that are outside of our remit or things that we can't necessarily control, then they're items that we have to just give people a warning that they're happening and the costs are going up.
There's loads going on at the moment, and it's very important for us to be able to be up to date on the situation in the host locations, and to be able to update our clients on the current situation too. A good example of this is the housing market, because there is a high demand and a very low supply. So it's important for us to be able to manage the expectation of our customers, and to ensure that if there's a property they like, that they move very quickly and they can get this finalised as soon as possible to avoid any disappointment.
I'd say that everything that's going on in the world at the moment is definitely making everything a bit more complex. But throughout our days, then we always try and make whatever is complex a lot simpler, as that will provide a better experience for clients and customers.
Things like a pandemic and a war are difficult enough already when you live in your home country and you're surrounded by your own friends and family. Imagine going through that when you're an assignee in a strange country where you don't know that many people yet, where you're starting a new role, you're starting and having to make new friends but aren't quite there yet. It's really been a very, very challenging period for assignees especially, and our people are amazing because they can adapt to any situation almost. They're flexible and they will do what they can to help people. That's what their role is about. They will see what it is that that individual needs in their specific situation, be it with their household goods move when things are delayed and they want to understand what's going on, or in the case that they're looking for temporary or permanent accommodation, for instance.
Empathy, no matter what, because if one doesn't have empathy, then the customer experience isn't necessarily there. Everyone has their own situation that they're in. Everyone has different aspects of life that they find harder and easier. For us, it's making sure that we make them as comfortable as possible, and by doing that, then we can make sure that their experience is the best experience that they can have.
We've really seen over the past couple of years that close collaboration between the two parties, and that's really built a new level of trust between our account managers and the clients. Well, the big thing that we've learned, of course, is that the only constant is change, especially after the past couple of years. In addition, what we're seeing at the moment is that change isn't going to stop anytime soon. So what's important to us is that we continue being flexible, we continue adapting to all those changes that we're seeing, not just in the marketplace, but in the world around us as well.